and she had many other biracial children. It talks about that for many members of the first generation to emerge from bondage, the experience with slavery was so shaming and painful that they rarely spoke about it. This willful forgetting pervades several branches of the First Lady's family. So this is talking about how Michelle Obama's family kind of dealt with this legacy. They didn't talk about it. All four of Mrs. Obama's grandparents had multiracial forebears. They kind of knew it, but they didn't really talk about it. By 1890, census takers counted 1.1 million Americans of mixed ancestry. And she goes on to say, "I'm appalled at slavery, Mrs. George at 61. I didn't know how that could have ever gone on in a Christian nation. I know that times were different then, but the idea that one of my ancestors raped a slave, that's hard to swallow." She trailed off for a moment in this conversation, considering the awful possibility. And she goes on to say, "I would like to know the answer, but I would not like to know that my great-grandfather was a rapist. I would like to know in my brain that they were nice to her and her children. It would be easier to live with." So we begin to see how both sides, both races, in the shame of this, just didn't want to know about it, didn't want to talk about it, and it becomes something that's unhidden. "My family were just most basic people who never had a lot," Mrs. Trimble said, "and I never imagined that they owned slaves. It just never occurred to her that that was part of the history." Buddha talks about, in the many reincarnations we've had, we've all been somebody's mother, brother, sister, lover, son, daughter. But sometimes we can go to sleep on some of the more immediate history that we have and may not know how these things connect to what we might see in our day-to-day lives around certain racial divisions. Now, all people that become aware of knowledge of racial ancestry being different than what they thought it was, they're not always not wanting to know. A lot of people have wanted to know, and there's a lot written about that. But what's common in the denominator of not knowing is a common pain that we share. And Ajahn Tejaniya, who's one of the teachers in our tradition, he says, when people are going through mental or emotional pain, they don't take interest or learn. They only want to escape that pain. So we are conditioned here in the West to move away from what is frightening and unpleasant, to move toward what is pleasant, and to ignore or not see oftentimes what's right in front of our face. This is our conditioning, and this is how we cope with what's difficult. Understandably, we avoid each other in an effort to avoid our pain. Now, racial avoidance is a part of our habit history. This avoidance can be conscious or intentional, or it can be unconscious and unintentional. Racial avoidance often manifests as blindness, we don't see color, or silence, we don't talk about race, and sameness, where we just stay around people that are comfortable and familiar to us. And again, this can be conscious or unconscious. And more importantly, we don't really think about race until it's raised. So the idea here is not to feel guilty or to be driven by our racial fixation, but rather to be curious and responsive as we turn our attention towards racial reality that we live with. There's controversy across the nation. Some people are asking, why do we need to engage in the concept of race or any other concept when our destination is ultimate reality? the reality that is beyond concept. It's the freedom inherent in a non-conceptual reality. So a lot of people come to Buddhism because they want to transcend to that place. So why are we dealing with concept when we're trying to not look at concept? And then there are other people that are saying, what is our responsibility to each other in a relative world? And how do we not cause harm to another through our own ignorance and aversion? The truth of the matter is we're in relationship with each other, and there's no getting around it. And we bring all of our history to those interactions. Another article came in just today that Larry Yang wrote. Larry Yang is a senior teacher who is co-teaching in the Community Dharma Leadership Program, nationwide program put on by Spirit Rock